Development Perspectives Africa, for me, is a platform where we will definitely engage policymakers, leaders in our various institutions, people who are very important in the development of our nation states. I have been privileged to be in the international development field for over a decade. I have traversed very many countries in Africa, and I have seen the difference that international development has really brought into these countries because of proper leadership, institutions, and proper planning for the various resources in our countries. I have worked with farmers. I have seen the important role that they play in the food security in our countries. But still, they do not get the support that they require to ensure we have food security in our countries. For example, food sovereignty is a topic that has been discussed for a long time. But you find that in many African countries, farmers are not allowed to keep their traditional seeds. Actually, countries are making laws to ensure that farmers are not able to preserve their traditional seeds. So, why is that the case in many African countries? Why nations fail? We have inclusive and extractive institutions. We have the political power. We have vicious and virtuous cycles. And all this happens in very many African countries. So the question is, why do we have some African countries that are doing very well compared to others? Why do we have other countries that are doing very poorly? So why do some nations do better than others? Some people have argued that African countries need benevolent dictators, in that dictators who really care about their countries but still offer development to their countries. These are questions that we shall be answering in this channel. We shall be bringing experts in governance from all over Africa to speak to these issues and tell us what has worked and what has not worked, and looking at the various case studies of what has worked and what hasn't to inform policies in our nations. Is communications important in international development? As a communications expert with over 18 years experience in the fields, I have realized that many institutions really don't think communications is quite critical whenever they're planning for any of their projects. A lot of times, as communications experts, we will be called at the tail end when the projects have already been implemented. So, to a lot of organizations, communications is just organizing a media event, to launch a report, or to write a press release about an event that is about to happen or is happening at that particular time, and not really engaging with the project's staff during the implementation phase. And this is quite detrimental to the success of most of these projects. A lot of times, communications is seen as very minute in most of these projects. And this has really not helped to understand what a lot of organizations are doing. So for me, this is a platform where we shall engage a lot of communication experts to tell us how they've been able to navigate the international development space in Africa and beyond, and to look at some of the best communication practices all over Africa. For example, sometimes a communications expert is brought on board and told, we want to have a media publicity event about a particular, perhaps it's the launch of a report that has been done after 3 years of implementing a project. And this communications expert is expected to really understand within a short period of time what has been happening in the last 3 years. So when the event really doesn't take off as expected, the communications experts are usually blamed for not really doing their work properly, yet they were not engaged from the onset. So this is a platform to discuss what communication is really about, to really understand the audiences, understand the objectives of what your communication needs to do, understand the audiences. Audience research is quite important in understanding what great communication is all about. and executing various strategies, advocacy campaigns, and generally communication strategies for various organizations in the international development space. Is aid important? Is dead aid really dead aid? So Dambisa Moyo argues that aid really hasn't done much for Africa. She gives her reasons why she doesn't think it has helped. And currently in Kenya and worldwide, USAID has been scrapped off. Well, for at least a period of time before it's reviewed properly by the US. And so these are some of the challenges that a lot of international development practitioners face because it's usually a cycle of projects ending and perhaps not having implemented the projects because or sustainability happens in the various communities that the development is being done. So we shall have discussions on, is aid really critical for developing our countries? Do we need aid? Or how do we go about the donor funding to ensure that it is properly utilized in our countries to bring the change that we want to see in our countries? A lot of institutions really don't understand the importance of crisis communications. And whenever they are met with crisis, that's when they understand the importance of definitely developing some of these strategies before a crisis happens. So I have dealt with institutions, developed strategies that will ensure that institutions actually understand the importance of really thinking ahead before anything happens. For example, what happened in 2024 during the Gen Z process really caught the country off guard. And the president said that the communications people are really not doing their work properly. And this didn't really come out, it didn't come out well for the communications people that were working at, that still are working at Settles. That was your boss saying, giving you a vote of no confidence in front of the entire country. So a lot of institutions really don't understand how important it is to have communication strategies, crisis communication strategies, until after a crisis happens. So, this platform will definitely invite experts in crisis communication to let us in on the importance of developing these strategies before crisis happens.